My wife woke up early to cook. 3 hours, her best dish, the one she only makes for family. My daughter-in-law picked up the entire plate and dropped it in the trash. She said, "This is trash," and walked away. I took my wife's hand and we drove home in silence. That night I sat at my desk and waited. The next morning I made one call. By afternoon, my son was standing at our door, pale, quiet, holding his phone with shaking hands. He finally saw who he had married, and he couldn't unsee it. My wife woke up at 5 in the morning to cook. Caroline doesn't do that often anymore. She's 53 and her knees hurt when she stands too long. But it was Eric's birthday, our first time hosting since he and Vanessa moved back to Portland 6 months ago. Caroline wanted it to be special. She made her beef bourguignon, the real version. 3 hours of prep. She'd been talking about it all week. Eric used to love it when he was a kid, back when his mother was still alive. Caroline knew that. She wanted him to know she remembered. I woke up around 7 and found her in the kitchen, stirring the pot, her hair tied back, wearing the apron that had belonged to Eric's mother. I'd kept it after she died. Years later, when Caroline moved in, she'd found it folded at the back of the linen closet and asked if she could use it. I told her yes. I didn't tell her whose it was until after. She cried a little. Then she washed it and hung it on the hook by the stove, and that was that. "Smells perfect," I said. She smiled but didn't look up. "I hope he likes it." "He will," I said, even though I wasn't sure. Eric had been distant since the wedding. Polite but distant. Vanessa made sure of that. I'm Harold Brennan, 61 years old, retired detective from Portland PD, 27 years on the force, 18 of those as a detective. I've seen every kind of human ugliness you can imagine. Seen people destroy each other over money, over jealousy, over nothing at all. I thought I'd left that world behind when I retired 5 years ago. I was wrong. They arrived at noon. Eric brought flowers, yellow roses, Caroline's favorite. Vanessa brought nothing. She walked in wearing white pants and a silk blouse like she was going to a country club, not a family lunch. She looked around our house the way people look at garage sales, like everything was slightly beneath her. Caroline hugged Eric. He hugged back, but it was stiff, like hugging a mannequin. Vanessa stood in the doorway checking her phone. Didn't look up, didn't acknowledge Caroline, didn't say hello. Come in," Caroline said. Her voice was bright, too bright, the way it gets when she's nervous. "Lunch is almost ready." We sat in the dining room. I'd set the table earlier. Nothing fancy but clean. White tablecloth, the good plates. Caroline brought out the bourguignon in the Dutch oven she'd been cooking it in. She set it in the center of the table, smiling, nervous. Her hands were shaking slightly. I noticed. Eric didn't. "I made your favorite," she said to Eric. Eric looked at the pot, then at Caroline. His face was blank. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to," she said. Her smile was fading. She could feel it. The coldness, the distance. Vanessa picked up her phone again. Didn't even look at the food. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything. Caroline served everyone. She gave Eric the first plate, a generous portion. Steam rising. It looked perfect. Smelled perfect. The kind of meal that takes love to make. The kind that takes time. Vanessa watched Caroline set the plate down in front of Eric. Watched her hands. Watched her face. Then she reached across the table, picked up the entire plate, and stood up. She walked into the kitchen. I heard the trash can lid open. I heard the plate scrape against the metal edge. She came back empty-handed, looked at Caroline. "That's trash," she said, and sat back down. The room went silent. Caroline's face went white. She was still holding the serving spoon. Her hand started shaking, not slightly, violently. The spoon rattled against the edge of the pot. Eric stared at his empty placemat. He didn't say anything, didn't look at his wife, didn't look at Caroline, just sat there, frozen, like he wasn't even in the room. I stood up, slowly. My chair didn't scrape. I moved it carefully. I walked over to Caroline and took her hand. The spoon clattered to the floor. "We're leaving." "Harold," she whispered. Her voice was breaking. "We're leaving," I said again. My voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that comes right before something bad happens. I led her to the door, grabbed her purse and my jacket. Eric stood up halfway like he was going to say something, but Vanessa put her hand on his arm and he sat back down, like a dog. like a trained dog. I walked Caroline to the car. She didn't cry until we were 3 blocks away. Then she broke, sobbing, shaking. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep, the kind you can't control. I pulled over into a grocery store parking lot and just held her while she cried into my shoulder. "Why does she hate me?" Caroline asked. Her voice was muffled against my shirt. What did I do to her? I didn't have an answer. Or I did, but it wouldn't help. How do you tell your wife that another woman hates her for existing, for being loved, for being chosen? We drove home in silence. I helped her inside. She went straight to the bedroom and closed the door. I heard her crying through the wall, deep, broken sobs that made my chest hurt. I sat at my desk in the den and opened my laptop. I'd been a cop for 27 years. Detective for 18 of those. I retired 5 years ago but kept my PI license active. I still took cases. Mostly insurance fraud, background checks for law firms, skip traces. Simple stuff, boring stuff. The kind of work that pays the bills and doesn't keep you up at night. But I hadn't forgotten how to investigate people. 6 months ago, when Eric told me he was marrying Vanessa, I ran a background check. Just standard. I didn't tell him. I just wanted to know who she was, where she came from, what kind of person my son was bringing into our family. I found something. Nothing criminal, but something that didn't match the story she told Eric. A gap, a discrepancy in her resume, a certification she claimed to have that didn't exist in any state registry. I'd checked 3 times, called the credentialing body directly. They had no record of her, no application, no exam, nothing. I'd saved the file. I hadn't planned to use it. I'd hoped I wouldn't need to. I opened it now. I read through everything again. The employment records, the credential databases, the LinkedIn profile that didn't match the tax documents, the job history that had holes big enough to drive a truck through. Then I picked up my phone. I didn't call Eric. I called someone else. But I still didn't know the worst was yet to come. The call I made was to Judith Morrison, Vanessa's mother. I'd met Judith twice, once at the engagement party, once at the wedding. She was polite, quiet, the kind of woman who apologized for taking up space. She said excuse me when people bumped into her. She held her purse with both hands like someone might take it. I remembered thinking she looked tired, not physically, emotionally, like she'd been carrying something heavy for too long. I found her number in Eric's phone contacts from the wedding group chat. I saved it back then. Force of habit. You never know when you'll need to reach someone. You never know when a phone number becomes evidence. She answered on the 4th ring. Hello? Her voice was careful, guarded. Mrs. Morrison, this is Harold Brennan, Eric's father. Pause. Long pause. I could hear her breathing. Oh, hello, Harold. Is everything all right? No, I said. It's not. Can we talk? A longer pause. She sounded like she'd been waiting for someone to call. Maybe she had. Maybe she'd been waiting for years. About Vanessa? Yes. Can you meet me tomorrow? There's a coffee shop on Hawthorne, near 25th. I'll be there at 10. I'll be there, I said. She hung up. No goodbye. Just a click. I didn't sleep that night. Caroline did, eventually, but only after I sat with her until she stopped crying. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the way Eric had just sat there. My son, the kid I raised, the kid I taught to stand up for people. And he'd let his wife throw food in the trash that Caroline had spent 3 hours making. Let her call it garbage. Let her humiliate the woman who'd tried so hard to love him. What happened to him? The next morning, I told Caroline I had an errand to run. She didn't ask where. She was still in bed, staring at the wall. She hadn't eaten, hadn't showered, just lay there. I drove to the coffee shop. Judith was already there, sitting in the back corner, holding a cup of tea with both hands like she was trying to warm herself. It was 70 degrees outside. I sat down across from her. Thank you for meeting me. She nodded, looked at me. Her eyes were red, fresh red, like she'd been crying that morning. What did she do? I told her. Everything. What Vanessa said. What she did with the plate. How Eric sat there and didn't say a word. How Caroline cried in the car. How she hadn't left the bedroom since. Judith closed her eyes. I was afraid of this. Afraid of what? She set the cup down. Her hands were shaking. Vanessa has always been cruel when she feels threatened. And she feels threatened by your wife. Why? Because your wife replaced Eric's mother. In Vanessa's mind, that makes her competition. Vanessa can't stand not being the most important woman in the room. She never could. I leaned forward. There's more, isn't there? Judith looked at me for a long time, studying my face, deciding whether to trust me. Then she nodded. What do you know about her job history? I know she claims to have a certified meeting professional credential, but I checked. She doesn't. Judith's face didn't change. No surprise, no shock, just resignation. She lied on her resume to get her current job, forged a certificate. She told me about it 2 years ago. She thought it was funny, said everyone does it, said it didn't matter as long as she didn't get caught. Does Eric know? No, Judith said. And if her employer found out, she'd be fired, possibly prosecuted. It's fraud, document fraud. I sat back. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired, she said. Her voice broke, cracked right down the middle. I'm tired of watching her hurt people. I'm tired of making excuses. And I'm tired of watching my granddaughter grow up in a house where her mother treats people like garbage. Mia, I said. Yes, Mia. Judith wiped her eyes. Eric won't leave her on his own. He's too afraid. He's been afraid since his divorce from his first wife. He's terrified of being alone again. Vanessa knows that. She uses it. But if he sees who she really is, maybe he'll find the courage. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Manila. Thick. She slid it across the table. I made copies. The fake certificate. The emails where she admitted it to me. Everything. I opened the folder. It was all there. The forged credential with Vanessa's name on it, side by side with the real one showing the security features hers was missing. Emails, screenshots, text messages where Vanessa laughed about getting away with it. I've been keeping this for 2 years, Judith said. I didn't know what I was waiting for. I think I was waiting for someone to care enough to use it. What do you want me to do with this? I asked. I want you to show it to my son-in-law, she said, and I want him to wake up. What I found out next changed everything completely. Before I tell you what happened next, let me ask you something. If your own child's mother-in-law handed you proof that could destroy their marriage, would you use it? Would you show it to them knowing it might blow up their entire life? Or would you stay quiet and watch them suffer? I had that folder in my hands. I had the proof, and I had a choice to make. What I did next changed my son's life forever. I didn't call Eric right away. I went home and sat with the folder for 2 hours. Caroline was in the garden, pulling weeds. She did that when she was upset, kept her hands busy, kept her mind somewhere else. I thought about all the ways this could go wrong. Eric could choose Vanessa. He could cut me off completely. I could lose my son trying to save him. I could push him so far away that I'd never get him back. But then I thought about Caroline's face when Vanessa threw that plate in the trash, and I made the call. Eric answered on the first ring. Dad, I need you to come over, I said. Alone. I don't think that's a good idea right now. I wasn't asking, I said. Be here in an hour. I hung up. He showed up in 45 minutes, pulled into the driveway and sat in his car for a few minutes before getting out. I watched him through the window. He was gripping the steering wheel, just sitting there, staring at our front door like it was the entrance to a courtroom. When he walked to the door, he looked like a man going to his own execution. I let him in. Caroline was still in the garden. I didn't tell her Eric was here. She didn't need to see this. Not yet. We sat in the living room. He wouldn't look at me. Kept his eyes on the floor, on his hands, anywhere but my face. I'm sorry about yesterday, he said. His voice was flat, rehearsed. Vanessa was stressed. She didn't mean it the way it came out. Stop, I said. He looked up, startled. I didn't ask you here to listen to excuses, I said. I asked you here because you need to see something. I handed him the folder. He opened it slowly, like it might explode. Started reading. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. His hands started shaking. The papers rattled. Where did you get this? He whispered. Your mother-in-law. Eric looked up at me. His eyes were wide, shocked. Judith gave you this? Yesterday, after I told her what Vanessa did to Caroline. Eric stared at the papers, read them again, then again. She forged a certificate? Yes. And she's been using it to keep her job for 2 years. If her employer finds out, she'll be fired, maybe charged. Document fraud is a felony in Oregon. Eric's hands were shaking harder now. He set the folder down on the coffee table like it was on fire, like it might burn him. Why would Judith give this to you? Because she's tired of watching Vanessa hurt people, and she's worried about Mia. Eric stood up. started pacing, back and forth, back and forth. He ran his hands through his hair, pulled at it. You don't understand. She's not always like this. She's under a lot of pressure. Work is hard. The baby is hard. Moving back to Portland was hard. She threw Caroline's food in the trash and called it garbage, I said. My voice was louder than I intended. And you sat there. You didn't say a word. Eric stopped pacing. His back was to me. His shoulders were shaking. I raised you better than that, I said. He turned around. There were tears in his eyes. Actual tears. My son was crying. I didn't know what to do. You defend your family, I said. That's what you do. You stand up. You speak up. You don't sit there like a statue while someone you love gets destroyed. She is my family, Eric said. His voice cracked. So is Caroline. So am I. And you chose her. Eric's face crumpled. He sat back down and put his head in his hands. His whole body was shaking. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix her, I said. But you can decide whether you're going to keep letting her destroy the people around you. Eric picked up the folder again, stared at it. If I show this to her, she'll know Judith betrayed her. Judith knows, I said. She's willing to accept that. She's made her choice. Now you have to make yours. Eric stood up, took the folder, held it against his chest like a shield. I need to think. Take your time, I said, but not too much. He left, didn't say goodbye, just walked out with the folder under his arm and drove away. I watched his car disappear down the street. Caroline came in from the garden 10 minutes later. Her hands were dirty. Her eyes were still red. Was that Eric's car? Yeah. What did he want? To apologize, I said. It wasn't a lie. Not exactly. He did apologize. It just wasn't enough. She nodded. Didn't press. She knew I'd tell her when I was ready. She went upstairs to shower. I sat in the living room and waited. I didn't have to wait long. That night, my phone rang at 11:30. It was Eric. I could hear shouting in the background. Vanessa's voice. High-pitched, furious, screaming words I couldn't make out. Dad, Eric said. His voice was shaking, barely holding together. Can I come over? Now? Please. Come, I said. He showed up 20 minutes later. No Mia, no Vanessa, just him. His eyes were red, swollen. His shirt was wrinkled. There was a scratch on his neck. Fresh. Red. Caroline had gone to bed. I made coffee. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Caroline had cried the night before. I showed her the folder. Eric said. I didn't say anything, just waited. Let him talk. She denied it at first. Said Judith was lying. Said you were lying. Said everyone was lying except her. Then I showed her the emails, the ones she sent to her own mother. Her words, her confession. And she admitted it. Then she said it wasn't a big deal. Said everyone lies on resumes. Said I was being dramatic. Then she started screaming at me for believing you over her, for taking your side, for letting you poison me against her. What did you say? Eric looked at me. His eyes were empty. I asked her if it was true. The certificate, the forgery, all of it. And she admitted it. Then she said I was a coward for caring. She said if I loved her, I'd destroy the evidence and never bring it up again. She said if I really cared about our family, I'd burn the folder and forget I ever saw it. What did you tell her? I told her I needed space. I grabbed my keys and left. She threw a glass at me. It hit the wall next to my head. Shattered. That's when I knew I had to get out. And it only gets worse from here. Eric stayed in our guest room for 3 nights. Vanessa called constantly. I saw his phone light up over and over. Buzz, 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 like a wasp trapped in a jar. Eric showed me the call log at some point. 47 calls in 3 days, 16 voicemails, 32 text messages. He answered twice. Both times ended in shouting. I could hear her voice through the phone from across the room, screaming, accusing, threatening. On the 4th day, he went back to get his things. He said he'd be quick, in and out, just clothes and his laptop. He didn't take Mia, said Vanessa had her. Said she'd locked herself and the baby in the bedroom and threatened to call the police if he tried to force his way in. I told him to file for separation. Get a lawyer. Document everything. He said he would. He didn't. Instead, he tried to fix it. Went to counseling. Found a therapist who specialized in couples therapy. Made an appointment. Told Vanessa they were going together. She refused. Said therapy was for weak people. Said they didn't need a stranger telling them how to live their lives. Eric begged. Actually begged. Got on his knees in their living room and begged her to go. She said she'd go if he promised never to speak to me or Caroline again. He didn't promise, but he stopped coming around. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. I'd see his car sometimes, driving past our street, never stopping, just driving. Like he wanted to come home but couldn't remember how. I heard about the rest through Judith. She called me once a month, always the same time. First Sunday of the month at 9 in the morning. Told me how things were falling apart. Vanessa had been fired. Someone had called her employer. Anonymous tip. Told them about the forged credential. They investigated, found the discrepancies, confronted her. She denied it. They showed her the evidence. She was escorted out that afternoon. Security watched her pack her desk, walked her to the parking lot, took her badge. I never found out who made that call. I didn't ask, but I had my suspicions. Vanessa blamed Eric, blamed Judith, blamed me, blamed Caroline, blamed everyone except herself. The fights got worse. She started drinking. Not social drinking, real drinking. A bottle of wine before dinner, another after. Eric started sleeping on the couch, then in his car. Then he stopped coming home some nights. Judith said Mia started having nightmares, waking up screaming, asking why Mommy was angry all the time. Eric tried to shield her, tried to keep things normal, but you can't hide that kind of chaos from a 3-year-old. They feel it. They know. 6 months after that night in my kitchen, Eric filed for divorce. Vanessa fought it, fought hard, hired a lawyer, a good one, expensive, started building a case. Said Eric was unstable, said he was influenced by me, said I'd poisoned him against her, said Caroline was jealous of her relationship with Eric and had manipulated the whole thing. She filed a counterclaim, asked for full custody, asked for the house, asked for alimony, asked for everything. The custody battle was brutal. Depositions, interrogatories, court hearings. Eric looked like he aged 10 years and 6 months, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Just worked and fought and tried to keep his head above water. Judith testified on Eric's behalf. The drinking, the threats. The night Vanessa locked herself in with Mia and wouldn't come out for 12 hours. Eric had called the police that night. They'd come, knocked on the door. Vanessa had opened it, smiled, said everything was fine, just a misunderstanding. The officers left. Eric slept in his car. All of it was documented. Police reports, text messages, voicemails where Vanessa screamed that she'd make sure he never saw his daughter again. Emails where she threatened to tell the court he was abusive. He wasn't. There wasn't a violent bone in Eric's body, but she knew how to use words like weapons. The judge heard everything, read everything, looked at Vanessa, looked at Eric, made a decision. Primary custody to Eric. Supervised visitation for Vanessa. Vanessa stood up in the courtroom and screamed. Called the judge corrupt. Called Eric a liar. Called Judith a traitor. Security had to escort her out. Her lawyer quit the next day. Wait until you hear what happened next. Vanessa didn't accept the ruling. She filed an appeal, claimed bias, claimed Eric had bribed the judge, claimed Judith had perjured herself. None of it was true. All of it cost money. Eric's savings disappeared. He took out a loan, then another. She started showing up at his apartment. At first, it was during the day. Supervised visits. She'd sit in the living room with a court-appointed monitor and play with Mia for 2 hours. Stiff, forced, like she was performing for an audience. Then she started showing up at night. No monitor, no permission, just appearing, knocking on the door at midnight, at 2 in the morning, at 4. Eric called the police twice. They told her to leave. She did, then came back the next night. She sent emails, hundreds of them, to Eric, to his employer, to his friends. Long rambling messages about how he'd destroyed their family, how I'd manipulated him, how Caroline was the real villain. Most people ignored them. Some didn't. Eric lost friends, people he'd known for years. They didn't want the drama, didn't want to choose sides, so they just disappeared. Vanessa created social media accounts, posted about the divorce, posted about the custody battle, posted about how the system was rigged against mothers, posted photos of Mia with captions about how much she missed her daughter. The posts got traction. Strangers commented, took her side, called Eric terrible things. Eric hired a lawyer to send a cease and desist. Vanessa ignored it. Posted a photo of the letter with a caption about legal harassment. Judith tried to intervene, called Vanessa, asked her to stop, asked her to think about Mia. Vanessa told her she hoped she died alone, then blocked her number. But Eric held on. Barely. He moved to a new apartment. Didn't tell Vanessa the address. Used a P.O. box. Changed his phone number. Started over. For a few months it was quiet. Vanessa disappeared. No calls, no emails, no midnight visits. Eric started to breathe again. Started to sleep. Mia stopped having nightmares. Then Vanessa got remarried. Someone she met online. Moved to Seattle. Started a new life. Posted photos of her new husband, her new house, her new happiness. Like Eric and Mia had never existed. Eric thought it was over. He relaxed, dropped his guard. But what came after was even more devastating. Vanessa filed for a modification, claimed her life had stabilized, claimed she'd gotten help, went to therapy, stopped drinking, found a good job, had a stable home, wanted joint custody, wanted Mia for holidays and summers. The court scheduled a hearing. Eric showed up with his lawyer. Vanessa showed up with hers, and a folder full of character references, letters from her new employer, her therapist, her new husband, her neighbors, all saying she'd changed, all saying she deserved another chance. Eric's lawyer argued, showed the history, the emails, the midnight visits, the restraining order violations, but it had been 2 years. People change, the judge said. People deserve second chances. The judge modified the custody order. Joint custody. Alternating weeks. Mia would split time between Portland and Seattle. Eric came to my house that night, sat at the kitchen table, didn't cry, just stared at the wall. I lost, he said. You didn't lose, I said. You're still her father. Half the time, he said. I'm her father half the time. Caroline made tea, set it in front of him. He didn't drink it, just wrapped his hands around the cup and stared. What if she poisons her against me? Eric asked. What if Mia comes back from Seattle and doesn't want to be here anymore? Then you love her anyway, I said. You keep being her father. You keep showing up. You keep being the stable one. Eric nodded, but I could see he didn't believe it. The transition started. Every Sunday night, Eric would drive Mia to a meeting point halfway between Portland and Seattle, a rest stop off I-5, neutral ground. He'd hand her over to Vanessa, watch her get into another car, watch her drive away. It destroyed him every time. Mia started acting different, quieter, more withdrawn. She stopped calling Caroline Grandma Rose, started calling her Caroline, stopped talking about school, stopped talking about friends, just answered questions with one word. Yes, no, fine. Eric asked her if everything was okay in Seattle. She said yes, but her eyes said something else. Then one Sunday, Vanessa didn't show up. Eric waited at the rest stop for 2 hours. Called, texted, no answer. Finally drove back to Portland with Mia. Called his lawyer, filed a motion for contempt. Vanessa showed up to court with an excuse. Car trouble, work emergency, something. The judge gave her a warning, told her not to do it again. She did it again. 3 weeks later, same thing. No show, no call. Eric waited, drove home, filed another motion. The pattern repeated. Vanessa would show up for a month, then miss a week, then show up again, always with an excuse, always with a reason. The court couldn't keep up. By the time they scheduled a hearing, she'd be compliant again. Eric stopped trusting the schedule, stopped planning, just lived week to week, never knowing if Vanessa would show up or not. It went on like that for almost a year. Then Judith called me. Her voice was different, urgent. Vanessa's new husband left her, she said. When? Last week. Filed for divorce. She's falling apart. I'm worried she's going to do something. Like what? I don't know. But you need to tell Eric to be careful. I told Eric. He doubled down on security, changed his locks, installed cameras, made sure Mia's school knew not to release her to anyone but him. 2 days later, Vanessa showed up at Eric's apartment, drunk, screaming, pounding on the door. Eric called the police. They arrested her, charged her with violation of a restraining order. She spent the night in jail. The next morning, she filed a motion to modify custody again, claimed Eric had set her up, claimed he'd provoked her, claimed she was the victim. The judge denied it, revoked her unsupervised visitation, back to supervised only. Vanessa sent one last email, to Eric, to Judith, to me, to Caroline. It said, "You all win. I hope you're happy." Then she disappeared. In that moment, something inside me died. And when that happens, there's no going back. That was almost 2 years ago now. Vanessa moved back to Seattle. Works remotely for some startup. I heard she got remarried again. Someone new. Judith doesn't talk to her anymore. Said she tried, but Vanessa told her she was dead to her. Cut her off completely. Judith comes to Portland every few months now. Stays with us. She and Caroline get along. They garden together. Talk about books. She teaches Mia how to bake. It's strange, but it works. Eric moved into an apartment near us. Small. 2 bedrooms. One for him, one for Mia. We see them twice a week. Mia calls Caroline Grandma Rose again. She's 5 now. Smart, sweet, asks a lot of questions. Eric is different. Quieter, sadder, but steadier. He apologized to Caroline 6 different times before she told him to stop. She forgave him the first time. She just wanted him to forgive himself. Eric asked me once if I regretted it, giving him the folder, starting the whole thing. "Do you?" I asked. He thought about it. "No, but I wish it didn't cost me so much." "What did it cost you?" I asked. "My marriage, my daughter's stability, my relationship with Vanessa's family." "You didn't have a marriage," I said. "You had a hostage situation, and Mia is better off now than she would have been watching her mother destroy you." Eric nodded, but I could see he didn't fully believe it yet. Maybe he never will. Last week, Eric brought Mia over for dinner. Caroline made spaghetti, simple, easy, nothing fancy. Mia ate 3 plates and asked for more. After dinner, she climbed into Caroline's lap and fell asleep. Eric watched them from across the room. He looked at me, didn't say anything, just looked. I nodded. He nodded back. Caroline still has that apron, the one that belonged to Eric's mother. She wears it sometimes when she cooks. Not often, but sometimes. And when she does, I always make sure to tell her the food smells perfect. If you want to hear more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. And if you're wondering what happened to the family after everything fell apart, the next story on your screen will show you just how far some people will go for revenge.